single right now.
For real. I'm trying to step in nobody's hospital if I don't have to. If I ain't dying.
Exactly. If you ain't listen, and you don't know until you get there, they might cause it these days.
Well.
You got a bounty price on your head. So, good evening, everyone. We are coming to you live. Our relationship flow, sip and chat. And I guess, this evening we are talking about communication and anxiety and how it impacts us, our intimacy, how it impacts our relationships, both personal and professional. So that's our introduction for this evening. Carissa, would you like to share something? I'm sorry, Dr. Carissa, would you like to share something?
No, I think you wrapped it up pretty good. We're talking about communication, the importance of it in your relationships, whether it be professional or personal slash intimate. And
Mm-hmm.
since last week we talked about anxiety and how it can really influence your life and ultimately your relationships, we kind of put that out there as well. Um, we hope that you guys will throw in some questions or your own experiences so that we can have a real interactive conversation.
Right. So I'm tagging some people
Okay.
that said that they was coming.
Okay.
Um, they was like, I'm setting the timers. And I get it. Sometimes you lose time in the with the way life is right now.
For sure.
Hmm.
So was there any comments or questions from last week when we were talking about anxiety?
I think people. Okay, so I got some people who caught it on the replay. They were
Mm-hmm.
really interested in the birth order,
Mm-hmm.
and how that plays a part, as
Okay.
well as saying that they had to do some reflection, because what we were talking about, not only with the birth order, but in regards to how they experience anxiety and how it plays a part in their relationships, became very clear to them that they didn't even realize that anxiety is anxiety, because it does, it's like we hear the word, and maybe we should probably peel that back. Like we hear the word anxiety because it becomes watered down as people try to embrace mental health, but
Mm-hmm.
in the reality and the scope of how we practice it or how we experience it can come in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, so I'm trying to think who was the people who commented last week.
So anxiety can show up in various ways, as you alluded to. Are folks
Hmm.
interested in the technical definition, like
How about we do the technical and then the
the real
operational, how it lives in
DSM,
life, right?
the real DSM? I mean, I could give you the real DSM diagnosis,
Oh, you
diagnose,
digging it up.
diagnostic criteria.
That was on your evaluations today. You had somebody, I know I did, not
Yeah.
so much in my evaluations, but with a
Mhm.
client who was like really looking at their anxiety, but not really realizing how frozen that they become, and didn't really recognize that they were experiencing like a panic attack, um that's related to their grief that happened, not that it happened 2 years before, but they're just now really confronting, trying to identify, okay, what does it mean to me?
Mm.
Which
Okay.
is interesting.
That
Yeah.
is interesting.
Hmm.
What was some of the conclusions that you guys drew in that
So
person's treatment?
So the conclusions is that it pauses and stops her ability to really, really be able to approach conversations, even if the
Mm-hmm.
conversation is not about the grief or not about like trying to enter into something new, like a new experience that's going to make her uncomfortable, because she fears disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
She guards herself over and over again, like, and not really paying attention to how much guard that she has around her.
Okay.
um so the intervention was like really kind of track her thoughts
Mm-hmm.
when she feels like and I use the example, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term lizard brain. That lizard brain is when you're trying to make a decision and you have difficulties trying to do that. And if you can imagine, like a lizard, they're always going like left and right, then they come back to the
Mm-hmm.
center, then they doubt themselves, they question themselves, can I enter and do this? And then they do the left and the right and then back to the center again. Sometimes for a person who's trying to enter into a space that they feel is triggering or provoking them in some particular way, that's their conversation and experience towards anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Like the overthinking and the attempt to avoid that particular situation. um just kind of peeling back and revealing on how uncomfortable that they feel. And then being in tune with what your body tells you, because your body usually informs with you around how you're uncomfortable, meaning, yes, it could be like your stomach is tight, you could be
Mm-hmm.
sweating, you could like have short breaths, you could have
Mm-hmm.
chest pain, but you could
Mm-hmm.
also be dehydrated with a headache, that just shows present like all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things are a demonstration of anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important points there. You know, that is one of the first things we start to do when we are trying to treat anxiety is having the person um, find out, because a lot of times this is new for them, but find
Mhm.
out what are some of the physical symptoms, because usually that is the first thing that starts to happen. You know,
Mhm.
even though it's usually in your mind first. You know,
Cuz
you might.
and our mind does what we tell it to do.
Mhm.
Hey,
Exactly.
Vernetta.
Exactly. Yes. Even though it's in your mind first, the physical symptoms are what most people recognize right off the bat,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know. So that is one of the things we do. And then, as like you said, as you get
Sorry.
further into it, then yes, we start to make you become conscious of what you're thinking, because
Mhm.
we know that thoughts drive emotions and ultimately your behavior. So yeah, that is you made some very important points, that is how we try to address it. And once you start
Mhm.
to recognize those automatic thoughts, you know, we even take it a little deeper and get into the core beliefs that you have, because that's
Mhm.
what's driving those automatic thoughts. And then we work on what we call cognitive restructuring, is when you start to try to dig in there and change those thoughts purposely, so
Mhm.
that they
With
no
intention.
longer, with intention, so that they no
Mhm.
longer affect you the same way. And
And
people
so
oftentimes try to avoid things thinking that it's going to help their anxiety,
mhm.
and that does not help.
I
The
actually use
avoidance.
them. They use it like a volcano. Like they try to
Mhm,
stuff the volcano of,
mhm,
I don't want somebody to see me in that way. I don't want to explode in that way. Um,
mhm,
and really like challenge on, I don't want perception versus reality as far as how it is that they interact. And it's really challenging, like you want to stuff it like a volcano, like you could just
mhm,
erase what your experience is, and unfortunately we can't erase any experience,
mm-mm,
whatsoever.
mm-mm. No. And as scary as it is, most of the time, the best way to reduce anxiety is to face it. Face that feared thing.
Mhm. Um, I'm sorry, I had an intrusive thought because what I was, my intrusive thought, I'm gonna say it out loud. My intrusive thought in thinking about how you said, how I said that the brain does what we tell it, but then
Mm.
also how we're talking about how you get blocked. That this shows up that if you're in an intimate situation and say your plate is so full that you're unable to stay present
Mhm.
because you begin thinking about the dishes or the bills, or when you finish this process of being intimate and caring for somebody that you really should be present so you can fulfill your full experience, you end up becoming distracted and it interrupts that process,
Mhm.
which shows up as anxiety.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, so for letter, what questions you got? What you want to add? Deidre, what would you add to anxiety, or how does it show up in your life? Not necessarily just for you, but maybe for people that you come in contact with. When I think of Verletta, I think about her fitness journey. And I know that anxiety shows up for that with people, comparing themselves to others, um,
Mhm.
you know, and thinking that they're not capable of doing a certain move or a certain thing that they strive to, but the overthinking of trying to get to that perspective is challenging.
Mhm. Can you actually see people's comments?
Yeah, it's on the side. You can't see it?
No, I don't see anything. Oh, there they are. Okay, okay. Okay, okay.
Said just being truthful to people and worried that they will be mad at you if told the truth. Yeah, people
Mhm.
get real vulnerable around you correcting them, but yet the correction is only to help them become a better person or to
Mhm.
become, more enhanced or capable of doing what it is that they're trying to do.
Mhm.
Or maybe they're not communicating it. Even, as Dr. Carissa and I talk back and forth, she may say something one way and it could be something different in regards to what would work out better, or what your experience is in working better.
Mhm. Mhm. You ain't hear me? You just ignored me.
So we are just, I guess, as a side note for the Facebook group, we are shifting it to public. I'm getting some messages over here.
Okay.
We are shifting it to public where you will be able to share and invite friends to join these Friday night conversations. Um, we just didn't get a chance to do that today before we went live. But we are,
Mhm.
we want everybody to pay attention. I added Cookie. Is Cookie your friend for a letter that you want me to add? I added her. And thank you, Deidre, for sharing. Great. Thanks for letter for inviting her. So, Carissa, where do you think we should go next in regards to anxiety? Like, in a professional setting or even in personal interactions.
Meaning, you said where we should go next, like
Mm,
the
like in the
conversation.
conversation. Yeah, in the conversation.
Um. Hmm. I
Or
don't know.
those who are listening, what do you guys
Yeah,
want
I
to
want to know what
know
folks
more
want to
about?
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
what do
want
you
to
want to know?
know.
Because this is like an encyclopedia to us. So, how do you guys want us to help you in your communication and how anxiety shows up? And again, I mentioned how it happens in intimacy, it happens in the boardroom, it happens when you sign in big contracts or deciding to work with someone, but also when you're entering into new spaces. It shows up as well. If you're not that A type personality that you could just walk into the room and everybody is like, oh, I need to meet that person. And you may be that person, but you may not believe it. So, you know, what is it that we can have this sip and chat about and be able to pour into you a little bit and tell us what's in your cup.
I mean, I like we could talk about Verletta's comment about being truthful to people and being
Mhm.
worried that they'll be mad at you that you told them
Mhm.
the truth. Um, I think, and I'm only going to speak from what I've heard. I think a
Mhm.
lot of that anxiety comes from a fear of not that you're not going to be liked, or
Mhm.
that what you're saying is not, even if it's truthful, is not going to be valued.
Right.
And of course, those are the kind of fears that'll make you keep things to yourself. But those, it does nothing for your relationship. Keeping truthful things to yourself.
Mhm.
I mean,
Because then you constantly protecting the
assertiveness.
bag. You protecting the bag in a different
Yeah.
way.
Yes. Yes. And assertiveness is a very important part of your own personal health, your own personal mental health.
Mhm.
You know, fear of being assertive definitely can lead to anxiety, because you
And
you never feel heard, and you always are overthinking conversations and overthinking things that
mhm.
you really believe in, because you're afraid of what the other person's going to think about you.
Or trying to protect your narrative, or like what it is that you say, to say, okay, well, could I have said something different? That's that lizard brain example I just gave a few minutes ago. Could I have said something different? Would they have received it if I had maybe added this word or this stance, or maybe my body language wasn't open, because your body language communicates in addition to what's coming out your mouth. So it's like all of these all of these elements, like we don't always pay attention to how important that they are. But we definitely don't encourage hurting yourself,
Mm-mm.
or
Mm.
that you're so busy caught up in your thoughts that you don't move forward,
Right.
because if you
Right.
thought it, you're more than capable. And that's to anything.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to add some tools, but you're still more than capable.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. Keeping things to yourself can definitely be harmful. It can be
Mhm.
harmful, even physically sometimes. If
Mhm.
you just continue to bottle things up and never really express yourself, they don't go away.
Right.
You still have the feelings, you still have the thoughts, so they just stay bottled up and come out in other ways.
Mhm. Mhm. So if this situation was sitting in front of you, and I know you probably could throw the baton right back to me with this question, as you probably will, what are what would be some things of if somebody is hurting themselves by not communicating their needs or their thoughts, would you suggest?
Well,
And of
it
course, we're
depends.
not
It
providing
depends.
therapy in this
Yeah.
conversation. We're just trying to give resources.
Yeah, it depends on the person, but the first thing is usually assertiveness training, you
Mhm.
know, and doing experiments with it, with assertiveness.
Mhm.
Whether it be role play or a little assertiveness while you're at outside somewhere or with a friend. So
Mhm.
a little experiments to start to build your confidence, because until you build your confidence, you won't be able to talk about these things that are important to you, but you're afraid of the outcome.
Right.
So I think assertiveness is definitely not the first step, because we want to dig in there and figure out where these thoughts are coming from.
Mhm. Definitely.
Definitely want to do that.
And
And
because we have scripts.
go ahead.
We have scripts in regards to how it is that we address and deal with stuff. And what I mean by that is like our rules that have been put in place from when we grew up are
Mm-hmm.
definitely playing a part in our adult life, whether we said, okay, I don't want to do anything that my parents did, but we do it
Mm-hmm.
kind of, without
Anyway.
even thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
do it anyway, not
Mm-hmm.
only to our children if we're parents, but to anybody that we come in contact with. So if you're sitting here with a volcano that you're trying to hold and not let it erupt and pushing everything down on the inside, you're constantly you're constantly looking at that you'll keep getting into these situations where your anxiety is at like a million 20.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. And I definitely encourage people to face their fears, you know? And I'm not going to say just go home and tell your husband such and such and such. You know, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Half the time, first of all, the person's not going to do it. They're
Mhm.
not going to do it. And then
Mhm.
they might not come back and see you. They might not come see you again.
Right.
You really have to go at the person's own pace. And, that's why I say we usually start with small experiments that the person can handle so that they
Mhm.
actually build up this track record of success.
Mhm.
The more success you have, the more comfortable you become doing these things.
Yeah, and again, it's really like retraining your mind, like you being able to
Exactly.
realize what it is that triggers you, and then
Mm-hmm.
retraining your mind because your mind is only going to do what you tell it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you tell it these are the situations that I'm uncomfortable, then it's stirring in the background, ready to just be uncomfortable and make you have
Mm-hmm.
the chest pains and the headaches and the dry mouth and the, thinking your assertiveness is wrong. And if your assertiveness has been told, if you've been told that your assertiveness is something negative, then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, well, let me correct that. Let me not be negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not negative. It's negative to that person who didn't want to receive what you had to offer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which
Hey,
which goes
April.
back to our child. Hey, April. Which goes back to our childhoods too, or and
Hmm.
how we were raised by our caregivers. If you were constantly told that your voice is unimportant
Hmm.
and you need to keep your feelings to yourself, like a lot
Hmm.
of us are in African American families,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, it's kind of hard to break that cycle.
Hmm.
So it takes some work to be assertive, as
Right.
you get older and form your own families and relationships. It's difficult. And even if you are trying so hard, I know you hear yourself telling your kids the same stuff you heard.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of conscious effort, like Mary said, to change those scripts
Hmm.
because they pop right back up.
Without you, you'd be like, I thought I took that in the volcano. Why is it creeping up? We're creatures of habit. So it's going to take practice of being able to learn when your body is telling you, because before it comes out your mouth, and you might be like, dang, that just blurred it out. Mm-mm. Your body cued you in some particular way. Like it made you warm, gave you a headache, made you sweaty, gave you a quick chest pain. Like all of those symptoms that I was sharing that are qualifiers for how anxiety lives in your life. If you're overthinking and you like, okay, I don't know how to make this decision, or I don't want to hurt the person, all of that is scripts that have been told to you. And then
Mm-hmm.
you owned it and said, okay, these are the steps that I need to do every single time. And that's not the case. Especially, I think that like when you talk about assertive, the one of the things that came to me, and it's probably because I'm like knee deep in this work right now, in regards to colorism and women in leadership. Um, we are intimidated by the fact of just walking into the room, and we can't help that we have curves where we have curves. We can't help that, our eyes may be sensual in some particular way. um and that we come speaking knowledge, like we drop in whatever it is that we coming into the room to say. However, it gets dismantled by, I guess I could say this here, I don't know, I'm gonna say it and y'all let me know if I can't say it. It gets dismantled by the colonizers or by men, because our society is built on patriarchy, that try to break us down if they see that we are more than capable in a space that they haven't given us permission or wanting to accept us in that space. You
That was
laughing at me?
politically correct.
I tried. I
Ah,
tried. Let me tell you, this journal
that was
article that
pretty
I'm about
good.
to write
That was pretty
ain't
good.
gonna be that political.
That was pretty good. I mean, I've had that experience working for government where
Mhm.
I was often the only woman in the room,
Mhm.
often the only black person in the room.
Mhm.
And no matter what my title was, I might be asked to take notes
How about
or,
that?
or go get drinks.
Put you in the service role.
Right. And
Meanwhile, you the
I had to
CEO
say,
of whatever
no,
situation.
you take notes. How about you do that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not doing
Mhm.
that. And sometimes, admittedly, depending on if this was a new group of folks, I might have
Mhm.
some anxiety, but I wasn't going to let let that let them
Mhm. Call it a spade.
put me in a role that I should not be
Mhm. Mhm.
in.
Because they'll do that. And it's like because we are designed to be helpers and hospitality, making sure everybody is comfortable, you know, we almost automatically is planted for us to not even second guess somebody asking us to help out. Be like, oh, you need somebody to write the notes. You're not even thinking. You're like, okay, yeah, let me go ahead and do that. But when you really think about it, you gotta look at who's asking you. You look around the room. Why they ask you? Why they didn't ask the other individuals in the room? It's like they're placing you somewhere and they're labeling you in a certain position that either they're watching, they're playing you. It's like they playing chess and you didn't even know that the chessboard was on the table to be played. So when people say that your assertiveness is communicating that you're overpowering or you're so super confident or that
Or you
you
a
are
B
doing
word.
right, okay, all right. She dropping the dimes. You the B word that they want to transfer you from the B word to the H word because no matter how much that they try to belittle a person or a woman, let me be clear, a woman of color, they still want us to be of service to them in both professional and non-professional ways because we come into the room with power and we represent what we represent. Now, I don't know if it's any men who have joined us, so we're not doing a woman to power situation, but the voices that we were hearing were from women. So
Mhm.
we were
And
responding in that particular.
April said that was her personal experience.
Mm,
Mhm.
listen, it's funny. I don't think that this was necessary. I mean, I have had it as my personal experience, but Carissa, when you first gave the example of you be the secretary and take notes, because of our history and the different places that we've been, I immediately went to that boardroom that we were at when I got bamboozled to be the secretary and not knowing all the roles that the secretary was responsible for beyond taking notes. Um, but yeah, it just made me think of that, just in a funny way, because I don't think that you colorismed me
Nah.
in that particular way. Y'all just needed somebody else on the board. But
But in
the
those situations, anxiety could make you end up doing, saying, being something that you're not comfortable with.
and it's like looking for acceptance indirectly,
Hmm.
and you don't want to
And you
disappoint
don't want
whoever is the person asking, and
right.
so that disappointment you begin to level up to, okay, I don't want to be disappointed, I don't want to disappoint them, this is
Or
an
you don't want to make
affiliation that I find
waves.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to
I'll
make
never forget
waves.
interviewing and thinking about this assertiveness and how things are communicated. I was asked a question, and it was two men that were interviewed other than myself, but I was asked the question, would I go along to get along, or would I stand in my voice?
Mm.
And at the time of the interview, I didn't really understand what that question truly, truly meant or what they were
Mm.
gauging. But now, hindsight, I'm like, they wanted to see, can they just put something on the table? And I was just going to say, okay, sure, we'll just go ahead with that. Which,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that wasn't. a successful interview for me as far as me obtaining that role, but it
Mm.
was successful in me learning the game of chess that was placed before me without even realizing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I see, Deidre, I see on me cheating, that you made a comment, but I don't see what the comment is just yet through our thing because there is a delay. So I'm wondering what that is. And Cookie, we added you in here. What you got? Oh, it's somebody else that asked to join too.
Hmm. Was that Deidre that commented you're telling the truth?
It could have been. It could have
That was
been.
the last comment.
If I go on it, the video is going to start. So I don't want to do that, and then we have like feedback.
I did the same thing, but I turned my media volume off.
Okay, all right. Is that how you
So
do
now,
that?
yeah, that way I could go on there.
And check. So what other ways does, like we talked about, being assertive, um overthinking, and it causing you to end up hurting yourself. Um okay, Verletta, you said she coming.
There
Thank
she
you,
is.
thank you, thank
Hey,
you.
Cookie.
Okay. um so one of the comments says fear keeps us complacent or stuck, as well as eventually we have to force ourselves to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, that's so loaded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That jump is so vulnerable, like it's so,
Yes.
but you have to just know that every experience is a teachable experience. So if you are having difficulties putting the right words together, or you're not sure if it's going to be received well, the only way you know is by jumping
Mm-hmm.
and just knowing that whatever situation is for you is truly, truly, in fact, for you. So if the outcome of you jumping doesn't give you what you were looking for, you got to look at what it did gift you, because
Mm-hmm.
every situation gives you a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I'm trying to find my media thing like you had.
Okay, Cookie said anxiety in my past has ruined relationships. Learning to communicate has taken me so far.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, and I would assume, Cookie, that your learning to do so far was, you probably had some pain as well as, things that weren't painful. But yeah, like, I don't know. I wish I can have you join in right now so you can kind of tell us more.
Okay, she said, I'd rather speak and someone else be mad than be quiet and suffer my feelings.
Girl,
Yes.
you get the snaps.
Yes, yes,
Snaps.
yes. And it's not like you saying F them. It's
Right.
like I have the right to share my feelings too.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yep,
Exactly.
anxiety does cause stress on the mind and body. Yes, it does. Yes, it
So if we
does.
said if we said to you, like that last comment, anxiety causes so much stress in mind and the body. And we said to you earlier that the anxiety starts with your thoughts in your brain. Who controls your thoughts in your brain?
Mhm. You.
You got you got
But
100% control.
oftentimes, especially with anxiety, you feel powerless.
Mhm.
You feel powerless and you feel afraid.
Mhm.
And that
And
does make you stuck.
awesome, Cookie. We glad you're here too.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
Glad you're here. And actually, I got something to share with you at the end with you and Verletta that I think that you'll like, that Carissa and I talked about before we got on. Um, the mind
Valletta
is
said the
is
mind. Yes.
child.
Mine is
The
so
mind can be the
powerful.
devil. Yes, it could be the goddess and it could be the devil all at the same time.
Hmm. Which is
Because
why
like I
it's
said, you could.
so important to master your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So important. Because it definitely changes the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's so powerful, but we forget. that we're the ones holding that power.
Mhm. Just like the conversation of anxiety, or not anxiety, of being overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Um People don't realize that the reason you're overwhelmed is by your own creation. Like you
Mm-hmm.
create, being overwhelmed by just putting more stuff on your plate than necessary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
And not
you can
saying
have
no. We're back to
and not saying
assertiveness.
no.
Not saying no.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We
I'm
have
ready
to
to
be
pass the offering
comfortable with
plate.
saying no.
Because the
Yeah.
ability to say no just really saying no and realizing that no is a full and complete sentence. It might be the shortest sentence in this world, but it is a full and complete sentence. So if you say
Mm-hmm.
no, let your no be your no and your yes be your yes. And when you're saying yes, like, be confident that in you saying yes, that you agree to every potential outcome that's going to come from your yes, because it's going to cost
Mm-hmm.
you something.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to
Mm-hmm.
definitely cost you something.
Yeah. I mean, it took
And
me
it's not
some.
necessarily financial, it's just going to cost you something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it took me some years
That's
to
what
be
somebody
comfortable with
said.
telling people no.
Hmm.
And my family
Hmm.
will tell you, if she don't want to do it, she not gonna do
That's that Leo in you.
it. That's right. You're not gonna
I know
force
it's
me
your
to do
season.
nothing because I don't want to feel bad about it later. I don't want to be
Hmm.
questioning myself later. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna do it.
Hmm.
And I can genuinely say when I do something for you, it's from my heart.
Hmm. Hmm. That's so awesome. That is so awesome. And somebody said it'll stop you for years. So the early years are very influential to the tour of
Yes.
adulthood. We
Yes.
rehearse
Yeah.
everything from our childhood over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like, I don't want to necessarily get too deep into this, but I'm just want to, like, share it. If you guys want to go deep, of course we're ready. But like, if you had some kind of trauma, like,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a fire, it could be that you had not enough funds in the house, but it could also be like a sexual trauma where something was taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
um that pauses you for years, almost at that age of the incident, to where when you come into these spaces where you need to be dominant in your role, the dominance is interrupted as soon as any action by the people who you're presenting to trigger you and show you something from that past experience, if it's unresolved. Now, if you've dealt with it and it's resolved, it'll show up and you'll just kind of laugh at it and keep it moving. But most of the time, because we don't always believe in the services that help us resolve those things, um, it shows up even if we stuffed it in that volcano, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why it'll put you on pause for so many years.
Mm-hmm. And that Cookie made a great point. It takes one person to shut you down early in life when you
Oh,
speak
I didn't
up.
see that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's true. It's so true. Especially if that one person is an influential person in your
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm. And it's like we can, I mean, always, well, not always, like, we can forgive their unknowing of what they were doing by what they said, but it's like we have to activate how we're going to function differently and just
Mm-hmm.
not be stuck in how it
Mm-hmm.
is that we were exposed to different situations. Because life is life.
Mm-hmm.
Life is life. It's up to us to do something different so that we're not paralyzed by fear, or we're not paralyzed by being overwhelmed. We're not
Mm-hmm.
paralyzed by anxiety or feeling that we don't have the right words to say to make someone comfortable. No growth happens in being comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you got to
True.
make sure that you're uncomfortable if you're trying to do something different and be that change agent in your own life and advocate for how it is that you're going to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. True. True.
So, what other thoughts we got? We want to talk about the professional influence. We kind of did.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm trying to think what would be extra. Like I put extra in the post. Like, okay, I know it's something else that possibly anxiety shows up. I was like, I'm gonna just write extra for now, and hopefully it comes through while we're speaking. And I know I do a lot of work around mind over matter. Once I can get people to just like change their mind on being stuck on things happening one particular way,
Mhm.
um, they make so much growth. But as long as they're like locked and loaded on things being in the same sequence in the same way, which is probably what they were told growing up, um, sometimes you got to change the order of things or add some steps in there that didn't exist, before, just so that your outcome can be, ecstatic.
Mhm. Performance anxiety.
Perletta is a phenomenal. I don't even know what title, because it's not one thing that she does. I'm gonna just say the word fitness. She does a
Okay.
whole bunch of stuff in fitness, and it could be sexual fitness as well as physically fit.
Okay.
I know she
Nice.
probably laughing at me for saying that, but it's okay. I got YouTube videos that I saw.
Oh, okay.
Her
I have
and
to.
Cookie. You gotta check them out.
Okay. I will. I
hmm
will do that. Okay. We missed one. Deidre says because you have to learn to control you.
I told you she was laughing at me.
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah.
Wait, what Deidre say? I'm sorry. I'm laughing at Verletta
That's all
laughing
right.
at me.
You have to learn to control you. That just goes back to what you were talking about.
hmm
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if we've been in a long term relationship and we come into a space of awareness of something that we've always done, the same routine over and over again, um, as we grow, we have to kind of educate those around us that are important to us that there's some growth that's happening. So that means some change is happening. So what
Mhm.
they were once able to do, they don't have permission to do that anymore. And they may not like that. They might rebel or say things was just perfectly fine. And you're like, no, they were fine in your house, but they weren't fine in my emotional house. So we had to do
Right.
something different.
Mhm. So what happens when you talk to couples
hmm
and
I knew she was gonna throw
this
a
is
question my way.
happening? This is happening for one of the couple, one person, and the other person is talking about, oh, you changed, she changed, he changed. What do you do? What are some of the issues you bring up?
Well, first I try to get a picture of what exactly has changed,
Mm,
because the perspective of the said change is different, like in regards to people's perception versus reality
mm-hmm,
of, how that change has impacted, because the change could be something on the surface. However, the impact is happening across the board. So I try to figure out what that surface thing is and get them on the same page of understanding before I could begin to help them create a compromise of balance or a compromise of
mm,
understanding.
mm-hmm,
Because even if they understand it, doesn't mean they have to accept it, but
mm-hmm.
they have a better understanding of why their partner is doing what their partner is doing.
Yeah. And with
I
that
had a,
conversation, they have choices to make. You
but they're
know,
having
either
a
you get to
conversation
change
about
or
it,
you not. Yeah.
right? Here we go to your book. It is what it is.
And April said they try to make you feel guilty about the change.
hmm
Yes, that can
And with
definitely
them,
happen.
and with somebody trying to make you feel guilty about the change, it's almost like every time you turn the corner in the kitchen, the bedroom, the living room, wherever you go, they like coming at your neck, and you like, but this change is gonna make me feel whole. It's gonna make me feel better. And that's when you just
Mhm,
really have to truly just stand in your space of excellence to
mhm,
know that you don't have to feel guilty because they're not accepting or on the same page as you. Especially when it's like I want to say a long-term relationship. you guys have to grow together. And whether that's growing together and the cars both on the highway going in the same direction, or grow together that you just say, okay, I acknowledge that. I see that you're doing something different. How does it affect how our relationship is? Because you don't want whatever that change is to stop the sexual pleasure or the intimacy pleasure or the organization of the home or all of those different things. When people are talking about your credentials, when they're talking about you don't clean the house no more, listen, let's put a line item and have a house cleaner, because I'm about to go on this grind or what it is I need to do from building my business, and I'm not going to be available to be home and clean and wash the dishes and cook, and then midnight you come tapping me. Yeah, no, how about we figure out with this change, how does it impact us all the way around, as opposed to just looking at it on a surface level. That's what I find tends to help couples and partners better. And it's like usually in a space of me working with them is the first time that they truly are talking about it. I also had this come up in a mother daughter dyad, where the mother, it's unfortunate that they learned in this session that they both have been sexually abused by the same person. That's the unfortunate part. But also what the mom realized is that she was always walking around upset and saying that the daughter was dumping stuff on her or not really hearing her, or she never had help anywhere. And what we came to realize, as far as going back to that assertiveness, she never asked for help to even communicate to her daughter that she needed help, or that she needed a better understanding on, say, these traveling trips that the daughter was doing and stuff like that. I said, in essence, you have become a silent business partner to your daughter's enterprise, but your daughter didn't have that full conversation with you to kind of share why she's living with you, what happens when she travels and her children is there. It's like, though, sometimes we assume that people will just continue to do what it is that we need them to do. But if the parent had the toolkit to really say or ask for help or be transparent on what her needs were, then it could have interrupted or changed the dynamic in a sense of they would have been at peace as opposed to at conflict. So they weren't really at conflict, although they thought they were, and they were, but that was the surface issue. It was really more so realigning and understanding my roles and responsibility to each other, that whereas we're sharing this living space and I do have two children, I'm traveling for my nonprofit as well as my for-profit, is bringing and helping the family build family wealth together. But in doing that, the daughter didn't communicate her intentions, and the mom also didn't communicate her needs with these intentions. It was just kind of like they was just living and going through the flow. So yeah, it becomes stressful.
That happens in lots of relationships where people don't communicate their needs effectively or at all. They
Mm-hmm.
just kind of let things swirl and change and
Mm-hmm.
be pretty not flexible,
Convoluted.
but yeah, convoluted. Yes, yes. And you expect the other person to be a mind reader, and that's really not fair to the other person,
Mm-hmm.
because when they don't meet your needs, then it's like, well, why are you not doing this or why are you not doing that? But you never
Mm-hmm.
really told me what it is that you want from me. And it happens all the time. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how many times I heard someone in a couple say, well, they should know. Why should they
Like,
know?
don't they see me doing all of this stuff? They should just
Right?
know I
Right.
need
Why
help
should
with
they
laundry.
know?
But if you have
Yeah.
gender assignment to the chores and the responsibilities in the house, that's the first thing you need to dispel. Everybody can wash
Mhm.
dishes. Everybody go do the laundry. We can all clean this house together,
Mhm.
and not really giving honor to that gender assignment, but really just communicating like, listen, I'm about to do work on this project at work. It's going to cause me to be out of the house for these amount of hours. And, you know, this is going to be the impact. So that type
Mhm.
of level of communication changes the dynamic in the sense of Now I know, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to sitting at home all day long thinking that when you come in at 7 o'clock, you coming in and you going right to the kitchen. No, how about have the dinner ready for me with some candles and some nice dessert, something, trinkets. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying suggesting trinkets like diamond rings, but just creating that balance where you guys know how it's going to best work for you. And we being fluid in this conversation, talking about couples as well as other relationships, but because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important, that you
Mm-hmm.
don't just think, oh well, when I get a couple or when I get a partner, then this is what I'll experience. You're
Mm-hmm.
partners with so many people in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very important that you tell people what you need from them and what you want from them, because oftentimes we have rules for people,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we don't tell them until they break them.
Right. Right.
And then
That's
the
key. I
other
think we need to
person
say that for the people in the back of the room. We don't tell them the rules until they break them.
until they break them. And
Hmm.
then it's like the other person really is caught off guard, even though you're saying to yourself, well, they should know. They're
Hmm.
really caught off guard
Hmm.
because you never explicitly said this is a rule. And we do this
Right.
to our children all the time.
All the
We have
time.
all these rules set up for kids, and they're not explicit until something the kid does something, and
Hmm.
now they're in trouble.
Hmm. And you want
So
to enforce the trouble, but you ain't enforce what the new clarification of expectation was. That is a challenging one for parents, especially when like certain generations of parents who are like that 37 to maybe 50, and they have like emerging teenagers or even emerging adults. They're like, they should just know what to do. Like they see what I'm doing. They should just know. Nah, they in a tunnel vision.
mhm,
And if you've allowed them to get away with certain things, and not necessarily you allow them to get away, they just never knew that they needed to be responsible. We got to do better. We got to make sure that they know how to manage their bank statements. We got to make sure that they know how to have codes of safety and recognizing what they're doing. So
ha.
I see.
April said, I'm so guilty of this with my children.
And you be real frustrated, as a parent.
Uh-huh.
Be real
Yes.
frustrated, like why they don't get it, because you never told them. They supposed to read your mind. Like, what class is
Hmm.
that? We all probably need to go to that class.
Hmm. Yes, yes. You
Deidre
have
wrote
to be
again.
explicit in your rules.
Deidre wrote communicating how and what you feel.
Hmm. Yes, yes.
And
And
you
that's
was
in
going to say you have
every
to be explicit.
relationship. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be explicit, and it's in every relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we think, especially in a parent-child relationship, I'm the parent, you know, they
Like a
need to do
dictator.
what yeah, yeah, like a dictator. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And you want them to be mind readers
Mm.
and loyal subjects. It's kind of
Right.
hard to be. You can't. There's no way for them to be a loyal subject and they don't know what's happening.
How about that? How about that?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, loyal to what? They're going to be loyal because you're the parent. And if you've done right by them, that they
Mm-hmm.
understand the right by them that you've done, it's kind of automatic without even thinking. However,
Mm-hmm.
if you want them to think for you and read your mind, you already setting up a situation that's going to be that volcano exploding. You're going to be like, well, why they responding like that? Like, wait a minute. Where'd that come from? It came
Mm-hmm.
from lack of communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like, it being
like
a game
the
changer.
100th time you walk past their room and it's a mess.
Is your room a mess? That's what I always ask a parent. I always ask a parent, you
And you
want your
yelled
child's
at
room to be
them.
clean, but like, are you modeling for them what a clean room looks like? And they be like, well, my room shouldn't matter. No, your room is really what matters, because if you got stuff all over the place, that's what they learn. They learn what they see versus what you
Mhm.
say.
All the time. Children do what they see all
Hmm.
the time. And all that, do as I say, not as I do. Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
They just doing it in secret.
Right. And again, trying to protect you, as we talked about earlier on the top of the conversation about, you walking on eggshells and kind of being protective so that you don't create disappointment. Listen, but at a certain point, they're like, what the heck with who's disappointed, who's mad. I need to speak my mind. I need to be seen. And so
Hmm.
then you'd be like, oh, these teenagers is rebelling. They ain't rebelling. They've been trying to tell you how they feel forever.
Hmm. So true. And they tired of trying to figure out what you want from them.
Hmm. Especially when they're trying to figure out how they fit in. If we're talking about teenagers specifically, they're trying to figure out how they fit into the world in and of itself. And
Hmm.
then they trying to figure out how to fit into your world as well. Is especially if we may think that you're working all of these hours to help them and to help build them up. But in actuality, they see whatever you're working on as a reason why they don't have attention. So whether it's providing for them to be able to take these wonderful vacations or have the Xbox or whatever game it is that is important now, Fortnite, and the skins. Let's not forget the skins. um, you have to think about what it is that they hear and what they see. And so if they hear, I got to stay at work late, then work becomes that surface topic that shuts them down.
Hmm.
Remember, what shuts them down, if it shuts them down as a child, it's going to shut them down in their adult relationships when they feel like a sense of abandonment. And I know that's not anybody's intention, but it's like a sense of abandonment that ends up playing out in their adult relationships when their partner says, well, I can't come see you tonight because I got to stay at work late or I need to go work on this project. They don't feel like you think that they're important enough for you to make time for them. And it's like, if you can't make time for me, then why am I here? Take you down a whole nother detoured street that ain't even what you was trying to communicate.
Hmm. Deidre said it takes us a while to realize that with the kids. True,
Hmm. Very,
true,
very
it
true.
does. Yes. Because we
Very,
just
very
be
true.
like, I'm the parent, what I say go.
I pay the bills. I'm gonna take your door off your room. And you don't have no food in the refrigerator for waiting for me. Like all this entitlement stuff. Like we just do the most.
Hmm.
We just do
Hmm.
the most.
Yes.
We just do the most. So anything else you guys want to know for in this conversation? Any other way that we could support or provide you guys insight into communication, intimacy, and anxiety? I was like, what else do we talk about? Anxiety.
We had a lot of stuff going on.
We did. You see, I had to think like, oh, wait a minute. I know it's a delay and we checking our devices to see who's saying what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I the
Cause
only
we.
one that has something in my cup? More than tea? That's what Carissa got. She got hot tea.
Mm-hmm. April said those aren't entitlement. Those are our rights.
Really though.
Our rights as parents.
Yes.
That's how parents be feeling. That's
Exactly.
how parents be feeling.
Exactly. We got to create a mutual sacrifice that we have some balance so
I
that
mean,
it's not a dictatorship.
I can't remember how many times parents look at me like I got three heads when I tell them they need to give their kids choices.
I know.
They be like, "What? Give them choices? Their choices do what I say, and that's it."
And especially
But
when
it's
you want
so
them to be able to
important.
make decisions and deal with
Yes,
conflict and resolve it
yes,
independent of
yes.
you, you need to model that in your home. And people say, well, I don't want them to see me argue or us argue. No, they need to see that because they need to be able to do exactly what you do because they already do it anyway. Like what they do see,
Mhm.
they need to be able to do it whatever you deem is the correct way.
Mm.
So if you're not modeling the correct way, then when they get to school and you get that phone call from the principal or the teacher that they didn't model it the right way, did they model it the way that you showed them?
Mm-hmm.
Gotta think
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Yeah. And choices are so important for, like you said, Mary, decision making.
Hmm.
Decision
And
making. As
yes.
they grow, they need to learn how to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So yeah,
True,
give your
true.
kids some choices, April.
Yes. Ain't no more dictatorships. It's not even entitled. Those are entitlements. They are. And then, so if they're not entitlements, when they become older and they have expectations of what is you should be doing, and you like, they 22 years old. You created that.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
created that. My
Yes.
girlfriend now is like, my girlfriend now is like her daughter like is going back and forth with either going to Bowie State or University of Maryland, and then she comes out randomly and she'll say, well, I want to go to France to go to school, or I want to go to Japan. She speaks Japanese. And
Mm.
she's like, first she wanted her to go away. Of course, with life that we have today, she's a little bit different in thinking
Of
about how
course.
far she goes away. So she was kind of content when she said University of Maryland and Bowie because she lives in Maryland.
Mm.
Um, but when she went back to France, she was just like, okay, no, we're not doing that. But the thing that made it difficult is she's like, the reason she don't want to go away is because she don't want to leave my credit cards.
Mm.
And I was like, well, you got to change the conversation about how people use your credit cards. Like she said they done live great lives with shellfish dinners, crab legs and stuff like that, that they don't want to go to college. And I think it was a meal to her father who is in like an adult care facility. He wanted like some rice and beans or something like that. And they said, isn't this poor people's survival type food? And she was like, okay, I gotta do better. I ain't that, that's what he wanted because that's what he had a taste for. She didn't think it was survival food though. Her daughter thought totally different of that.
Mm, mm, mm.
So choices in my home lead to negotiations. She said, what
Yes.
the?
Yes. You're teaching them conflict resolution. Yes. Yes.
So that when you're not
They make
present,
some
that they can
negotiation.
make,
Yes.
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 You want them to be able to negotiate that contract and not get paid the wrong rate in their contract. So they need to know how to negotiate choices and making the right decision.
All right, I give you that. I give you that. Some things are non-negotiable.
Hmm.
It's not probably not as many as you think, but
Right.
some things are non-negotiable.
Right.
Like going to school. You going. You going. We're not going back and forth about that one. You're going. So there are some things that of course are non-negotiable because it's for the best for them.
Right. So
Now you
Deidre
might
said
have a
something, but I
choice
can't see it.
about how you go. I
Okay.
remember I think it was a parenting class we were doing at what you call it, where we was at.
The WW place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
we won't give a free
yeah,
advertisement,
yeah,
especially if places
yeah.
closed. The WW
Exactly.
place.
Yeah. And I think in one of those parenting groups, we were talking about choices.
Hmm.
And I think somebody brought up something about a kid that would take all morning to get dressed and
Hmm.
didn't want to do her hair to go to school. And one of the recommendations was
Oh
no
goodness.
matter what state of dress she was in, at 8 o'clock when it was time to leave the house,
Oh,
she was going. And
now
that was
that's
that.
hard.
But after a couple times of being in the car and showing up at her school with pajamas on and her hair standing on top of her head, she was ready.
Okay.
She was
Okay.
ready.
That's almost
And,
like carrying them shame signs.
and yeah, I mean, so yeah, some things are you get a choice. Yeah, you want to go to school in your pajamas with your hair standing on top of your head? Okay. 8 o'clock, we
Hmm.
rolling out. So whatever you look like, that's what you're gonna look like in school,
That would
you
be
know.
devastating.
Yeah, and I think the parent they were saying that they had They had talked to the principal so that it wouldn't
Mhm.
be, wouldn't be like an issue. But because this was a learning experience for this kid who was
Mhm.
kind of rebelling about going to school and knew
Mhm.
that their parent had an image. I don't want to say issue, but an image thing going on with them. Like my
Mhm.
child is a representative of me. So
Mm.
if they not looking a certain way, then they not gonna go to school that day. And the kid knew
Right.
that.
Right.
The kid knew that.
Right. But you gotta go. Parents gotta go to work.
Hmm.
I mean, in today's life, it's a little different, but yes,
Hmm.
parents gotta go to work.
Hmm. Yeah. So sometimes, choices are always good for your children, but there are non-negotiables. But there are some situations where they're going to try you with the choice thing. April
Mhm.
said her son is the greatest debater.
Mhm. As he should be. She said, "I'm tired."
So
He
yeah, I
should be
mean,
though, because
but
that
it
might be
is
shaping his
valuable.
character for what his profession will be. Um,
Hmm.
so you want to nurture what those strengths are and not
Yeah.
see them as something that's hateful and harmful.
Hmm. It's valuable that we teach our kids these kinds of skills. These
Mhm.
communication skills are so important.
Mhm. Definitely are. Definitely. Definitely. So Verletta says it's so firm being a firm parent is rough. I know I
Hmm.
chopped that all up.
Hmm.
But you definitely do it. I mean, yeah, because then you probably go back in the next room and be like, oh my God, did I have to say that hard? But listen, life is not always gentle. So we have to make sure that we prepare our young people to use their voice and have their voice in all settings because it's not always going to be on a platter that's so desirable.
Hmm. And we have to be careful not to I don't want to say instill, but not to reinforce anxiety in them.
Hmm.
You want them to be able to speak for themselves and speak up, even to authority figures when it's necessary. You teach
Hmm.
them to do it respectfully, but you don't want them to be so fearful of
Right.
authority, that they can't speak their minds when they
Right.
have to. And oftentimes we might do that to our kids by stifling their
Hmm.
negotiating.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then they have
And
a
saying
hard
they being
time.
smart, they not respecting us, they talking back. No,
Hmm.
reshape that. They might be initially, but you can reshape that into real great teachable moments by just being open and able to receive stuff. It's the same as a couple. If a couple we
Hmm.
talked about they experiencing change, it's like renegotiate how things are going to happen in your relationship, in the house, for the children, scheduling vacations. Like it just the web keeps growing, so like negotiation creates that balance because then the true view of how somebody feels about a situation. Might not be what you like, but now you know what interventions to put in place or what things that you guys really need to sit down and talk about a little bit more.
Hmm. And whatever relationship you're in, you want the person that you care about to feel safe and trust you enough to share their real feelings. And that includes
Okay.
your children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Valletta, I will talk to you soon. Cookie, thank you so much for joining
Yes,
our
thank you.
conversation. We hope to see you both next Friday at 8
Yes.
p.m.
Yes, yes. Okay.
So one of the things I wanted to say, if you guys are even still here, um, is that before we got on, that we were talking about having a conversation around intimacy and the communication and how that all plays out. And so definitely we'll want your input on that as
Mhm.
the sexual fitness. I'll say it again, that it is that you provide.
Yeah,
So
Miss Berletta. Yes, yes, yes. I'm interested.
uh-huh. You're probably gonna kill me, but that's okay. We sisters in love.
So yeah, this is that. That's going to be our. Is that what we talking about next Friday?
we could we could jump
Okay.
into it
Yes.
next Friday.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we could jump right
Yeah.
on into it.
Okay. Great.
So is it any closing thoughts? I mean, not that it's up to y'all. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap up and wind down?
Mm-mm.
We love you too, Roletta.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you so much.
So then, what do we confirm as far as next week's conversation?
We're going to be talking about intimacy.
Okay,
And, and I do want to bring up some issues about roles and
child.
societal
Roles or role play?
norms. Roles, not role play. I mean,
Oh,
if
okay.
somebody
I'm
wants to bring
sorry.
that
I'm
up, we can
sorry.
talk
I'm
about
sorry.
role play. But
And that could
talking
probably
about
be down the
roles.
line in the series. That could be down the line in the series.
I'm talking about roles and the societal quote unquote norms of
Mm-hmm.
intimacy and what one should or should not be.
Mm. Wow. Okay. Okay. Like, okay, how am I gonna
Yeah.
put that on the flyer? Should and should not be.
You can put on a flyer. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's
Baby,
talk
let's
about
talk
you
about
and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that
Look,
may
Roletta was
be.
supposed to be leaving. She's still here talking about we could do that. We got you, V. We got you, V.
Yes.
And everybody else. So if there's anything specific that you would like to know and improve upon in your life of intimacy, be it your brain overthinking,
Mm,
performance issues, whatever it is that you are interested as you hear what we just described, feel free to inbox us
yeah. Yeah.
and let us know. And
Yeah.
I'm not a messenger person, but because I told you that I'll be checking my inbox, I will definitely be on it.
Okay, Mary. All
All
right,
right.
guys.
All right.
Thank you
Until next
so
Friday.
much.
Thank you so much.